I have chronic fatigue. I seem to get a handle on that. I take the transfer factor, and then I get dizzy, and then I get overwhelmed easily, and then I seem to jump from one to another. I'll get a cold, and then I'll get problems with my ears, and then I'll have plenty of energy, and it just seems like I'm in a cycle, and this has been going on for a long time.
Well, it may not seem fair that we've decided now that you're in the hot seat to guide you specifically, but...
And I'd just like to say that I've listened to one of your tapes, and this is the first one I've been to, so I feel like I'm in preschool here.
You are doing extremely well, and there is not anything that we would give you here that would be over your head. You will understand it all perfectly. In other words, you have a perfect substantial basis to understand anything that we could give. And if you have the ability to ask the question, then you have the ability to understand the answer. And we think you have stated your question very well here, so this will not be difficult for you to understand at all. We want to go back to the analogy that we began with here today about the satellite dish, about locking on or locking off. And we want to remind you that when a desire is born within you, all you have to do is become a vibrational match to your own desire, and then the universe yields it to you. Let us speak that more accurately. Whether you're a vibrational match to your own desire or not, the universe is yielding to you, but you can't let it in unless you're a vibrational match to it. So let's say that you've been living what you've been living, and you find yourself often tired or enervated or confused, uncomfortable. And out of that experience that's happening in any moment, you say clearly, oh, I really want relief from this. I really want to feel as I once felt. I want to get my life back. I want to feel better again. So your desire has been dramatically activated. But then you say, I'm tired. And we say, is that statement a locked off or a locked on statement? I'm tired. I'm up and down. I lose my way. In other words, as you listen back to your opening to us, and it's perfectly logical because we know it is the way that you were framing the question to us, but the majority of what you began with was a locked off statement. And you know, that's a very common thing, because when somebody's standing in a place where they really know what they want, often the reason that they really that they know it is because they're really not living it right now. And the living of the opposite of what they want has just amplified their desire for what they desire. But almost every time that person is talking about where they are, which is locked off of the signal of where they want to be. People will say, well, here I am standing over here in this tired, discouraged place, and I want to be over there where it's bright and shiny and happy. And so we'll say, well, let's talk about bright, shiny, and happy. And they'll say, I'm so tired of being over here. And we'll say, well, what would be better about being over there? And they say, well, it'd be a lot better than being over here. And we say, well, what would be better about it? Well, I wouldn't be so tired, still talking about over here. My friends would have a better time with me, still talking about being over here. And so you have to find a way of being consciously aware of whether the statement that you are making in this moment, which is where all of your power and allowing is a locked on or a locked off statement. Someone said to us one day, because we listen to so many people who are not where they want to be, and so we made a very bold statement. We said, if you have a desire that you're not living, it can only be for one reason. You're not in the receiving mode of your own desire. And so a dear woman said, well, how would I know that I'm not in the receiving mode? And we said, negative emotion is present. That's how you always know. How do I know I'm in the receiving mode? Positive emotion is present. You have to catch yourself in the act of not being in the receiving mode before you can deliberately bring yourself back to the receiving mode. Because if you don't know you're not in the receiving mode, then you'll keep doing the thing you do that's not in the receiving mode, and then you're not in the receiving mode, and then on and on it goes. So we likened it to Esther catching the possum in the chicken nest with egg all over its face. It was so fun. She loved it. The possum had egg all over its face. She went to get Jerry. She couldn't believe it. She said, we've been talking about egg on its face for so many years, and I finally have seen someone with egg all over their face. And the guilty look in his eyes, she knew exactly where that expression had come from. So we want you to catch yourself with egg on your face, meaning we want you to catch yourself in the act of being locked off your signal. This woman said to us, well, how many times might I do that? And we said, on a good day, about 2,000 times you'll be locked off your signal. And you might only be aware of it 10% of that, 200 times. And you might only go from locked off to locked on 10% of the time. But with that little bit of effort, or the little bit of discovery and success, you can change your ratio to being locked on so dramatically that your life begins to shift right before your eyes. So we want you, if you want to play with this just a little bit, to ramble. Now don't tell us what you think we want to hear. Just sort of begin as you just began, sort of describing what your life is like, or the same way that you would talk to a friend or to somebody you know.
Okay.
And we're going to demonstrate for you when you're locked on and when you're locked off.
Well, listen, go into the next question. I spent 2 weeks in London and felt really great. Saw the vagina monologues, which was awesome. I felt so great afterwards, I went and bought a leather coat.
Locked on, locked on, locked on, locked on, locked on.
I've never seen my husband so positive, and
locked on,
we
locked
had
on,
such a
locked
great
on,
time, and we
locked on,
came
locked on.
home, and it just seemed to fall apart.
Locked off. You see, what happens is,
And
people often think that they just have to face reality the way that it is. And we say, facing reality the way it is might lock you on and might lock you off, but don't run the risk of getting locked off by facing reality. Make it up if you have to, but stay locked on. In other words, whether you're talking about past, present, or future, sift through it and only come up with locked on pieces. In other words, we want to hear about the things you saw in your travels, not the things that went wrong. We want to hear about how you felt good, not about how you felt bad. It takes practice, but this really is all there is to it. Because if you've got desires that you're not living, there's only one reason. You're doing that thing you do that locks you off your signal. Because if you weren't doing that thing that doesn't allow, you would be allowing, because allowing is what is natural. In other words, people sometimes think that they're sort of a neutral entity, and that there's a source of good and a source of bad. And depending upon what they're doing in the moment, they're being answered by the good or the bad. And it's not that way at all. There's only a stream of well-being which you're letting in or not.
so when the negativity comes up from someone else, usually, I'm locked off, align myself.
Stop in that moment and laugh about it. I'm locked off. We had such fun watching Esther when we first introduced this way of approaching it, because she would catch herself the first week. She caught herself hundreds of times in every day. She would say to Jerry, I'm doing it now, aren't I? And what she meant was, I am disallowing the fullness of my well-being by this comment, by this notice, by this conversation, by this memory. She would just catch herself, and then she would laugh and say, I'm doing it now. A few times she would say, I'm doing it now, and then she would say, but just let me tell you anyway. Because she had momentum going. It seemed a shame to waste it. In other words, she'd thought it up, and she'd added good stuff to it, and she'd put it in a humorous vein, and she might as well continue to entertain him with it, you see. But as you catch yourself in the act of being locked off your signal, and you laugh about it and know what it means, either leave the subject or find a piece of it that locks you back on. Before you know it, it's not hard to be locked onto your signal.
So as I'm more locked on, I can discontinue some of these things I'm doing to be anal to. Here, I'm locked off again. Like, I take this transfer factor and I stay
What
away
does that mean, the transfer factor?
It's they take the herpes virus and they shoot it into to pregnant cows, and they take it out of the colostrum, and it's given to me in a pill form, and it's supposed to help the chronic fatigue. They do it with the Epstein-Barr virus too. And my question is, can I discontinue as I become more locked on for longer periods of time? Will I be able to just stop taking this?
Yes, yes. In fact, being locked onto your signal will allow you to receive everything that you are wanting. Let's play with it a little more. Just ramble a little bit and let us show you until you're really sure you understand it. Pretend that you're having lunch with a friend. Express in your usual way. Don't try to clean it up for us.
Okay. Well, I've been such a perfectionist, and I'm just tired of being a perfectionist, locked off.
All right, so now you're locked off. So now you've discovered that you're locked off. So does that irritate you, or is it humorous?
I think it's pretty humorous.
It is humorous, isn't it? Here I am, I've got egg all over my face. I've just caught myself doing it. So now I'm going to reach for a locked on statement. So reach for one.
Well, I've just decided that I'm just going to be the best Enneagram 1 perfectionist I can be. I'm just going to continue doing, and I'm going to do it in a way that's fun and enjoyable, and I'm going to stop not being who I really am. And I like doing all these things.
And the motive behind it is so wonderful. In other words, think about what perfectionist is really saying. It's saying, I am really, really good at whatever I'm turning my attention to. Mm-hmm. And doesn't everybody strive for that? And how could there be anything wrong with wanting to be really, really good at something and taking the pleasure from that success?
And I do. I get a lot of pleasure out of it.
Locked on.
My quilting is perfect. And when it doesn't come together the way I want it to, I put it away and bring it back out when I'm in the mood.
Locked on, locked off, locked on.
And when I bring it back out,
locked on.
I make sure I have my favorite drink and my favorite music.
Locked on, locked on.
And I have everything in place,
locked
and
on, locked
I
on.
just enjoy.
Locked on.
And it feels so great to finally embrace that.
Locked
this
on,
is who I am.
Locked
this
on.
is what I like.
Locked on, locked on.
And I'm going to put away all the voices that have ever said,
locked off.
don't be
locked
who
off.
you are.
Locked off.
And I'm not going to let this overwhelm me
locked
again.
off.
And I'd like to also ask you about
changing the subject. Locked on.
It feels like I get short-circuited
locked off
easily. And it's
locked off.
I'm driving down the
locked
street.
Off, locked off. Why are you continuing to go there? In other words, this is the thing that we're wanting to demonstrate.
Okay.
Because
I'm enjoying so much in my new car, driving down the street with my radio on loud,
locked on.
And for some reason, I don't know, out of nowhere, I just get overwhelmed.
Locked off.
And
locked off.
Okay.
But what we're demonstrating here, and we are so pleased that you are willing to play with us, is that, and we mean play, is that to continue to go. In other words, you get some momentum going, and you've practiced the thought of it, and you've discussed it with others, and sometimes it's a clever dialogue, and you use it to entertain yourself and others, but it doesn't feel good when you do it. And the thing that we're wanting you to do is that in the moment that you recognize locked off, stop. Don't continue to go.
I'll be quiet all day.
Locked off? We don't think that's true, but we think that was a locked off statement just to say.
Okay. What does sexual energy have to do with all this?
Locked off. Sexual energy is locked some on and it locks some off. In other words, it's an individual perspective.
I was so locked off when I heard about the vagina monologues, and I went. And
You were locked off when you heard about it?
Yeah, and then I heard more about it on Oprah, and then I heard more about it, and since then it's just opened up a whole new world of understanding.
Well, in light of what you've just experienced with us here today, locked on, locked off, locked. If we were sitting in that audience, would we say locked on more frequently or locked off more frequently from the dialogue that was coming from the stage?
I thought I would be locked. I had no idea. I was just going to go and be open, and
But we're asking you, from what you just experienced here, in other words, we think you have the sense of the statements that you make that are locked on and the statements that you make that are locked off. So if Abraham were playing the same game sitting in that audience, would we have said locked off more often or locked on more often in hearing those dialogues? Is it more about rebellion or is it more about adventure? Is it
adventure?
Is it more about the human spirit's expansion, or is it more about? It is
absolutely. Absolutely.
Then go often. Good. Something more?
I think that's quite enough.
We agree. We have enjoyed this interaction immensely.